Hello. So I wrote an essay on my Substack, which is also called Heuristics. I'll put a link down below. And the title is How to End the Middle East Wars and How to End Antisemitism, or how we're going to end these things. And my original plan was to post a video on YouTube when I would just be reading the essay, but I thought better of it because I think it would just lose the emotional punch. I'm not very good at reading stuff, like reading off a script. It's hard for me to do that. So I'm just going to talk from the heart, and hopefully this makes sense. Um, we live in a state of insanity on multiple levels. But when it comes to the Middle East, it's just everywhere. Um, so the first level, I would suppose, is that people insist that this conflict is political, and therefore that the solution is politics. I mean, you keep hearing references about um, this political party or that political party, and you know if that was true, this would have been solved long ago. Like you can make up the differences, the gaps between political ideologies. Like you can figure out a way to do that. Um, but this is not political. The common theme, or sorry, there's a cliche in the media, excuse me, that this is a conflict of narratives, that there's one national story, let's say with the Jews, that is completely incompatible with the national story of the Palestinians, and that's right. That's 1,000% right. I mean, every time there's been a peace process, it has blown up because because the Palestinian story, sorry, the Jews can't ever fully trust the Palestinian story. The Palestinian story, the popular version of it being, this is our land, and you guys are just temporary interlopers. And yeah, this is our land. This is Palestine. There is no such thing as Israel. I mean, that's what Hamas says. That's what the PLO said for ages. Just look at the education in Palestinian textbooks. You see this a lot on the street in Palestinian. Just look at Palestinian support for Hamas, certainly in the West Bank, and that's not an accident. They know what they're supporting. They know what Hamas says. It's not like they hide it, right? And we'll talk about the Jewish story as well, but this notion that politics is the solution is insane. And you can tell it's insane because, as Albert Einstein said, right, repeating the same thing and expecting a different result is the definition of insanity. And we have, what, 80 years or so of evidence? I mean, I think the case is clear that this is just not working. And that explains why there's this crazy sense of hopelessness now in Israel. Certainly in Israel. Lord knows, I'm assuming people lost hope, in the amongst the Palestinians long ago, because every time they try to go through this, some sort of a political agreement here, it blows up because they're not addressing the root problem here, which is that the narratives are at conflict. The stories that the Jews and the Arabs tell themselves are irreconcilable. And therefore, you see extremist voices saying, look, you idiots, politics, it's a very nice game, but it's not going to work, and we won't let it. We're not going to let it. So Hamas saying, all you guys who think that politics is the answer here, We're here to tell you that it's not. And not only that, but we actually have popular support for our position. That's that says a lot, right? That says that they speak for the spirit of the country or the nation. It's not a country yet. And the Jews, it's a bit different because the story there is we were humiliated for 2,000 years, and then pretty much like that. I mean, over a few decades, but they came back, and now they're this massive, massive success. And but the Jews struggle with their story a lot. You know, they. It's funny to me because you see this a lot in the media coverage. And that's my background. I used to be a journalist. Um, so I covered Israel Palestine for Bloomberg News for a while. And the Jews, the Israelis, they struggle to understand why the media is so hostile towards them. And some of it is unwarranted. I mean, I'll certainly admit that, but they they see the world through their story, which is the Jews are victims. Don't you see? We're victims. The Holocaust and the pogroms and the exile, October 7th. So we are the victims here. But how do you reconcile that with the fact that Israel is the most powerful country in the region, and they have nuclear weapons, and they're kicking the shit out of Gaza? It doesn't make sense. And anyone that is skeptical of the Jews are victims narrative, I mean, no one's a victim in my eyes in general. I think people, the moment you believe that you're a victim is the moment you've fucked yourself in your life. But for the Jews to make that claim when they're so successful and they're so powerful, I'm not talking about like some conspiracy about global control. I'm just talking about the fact that they have, in Israel anyway, a great economy and a very powerful army and nuclear weapons, supposedly, but I guess that you're not a victim. And so this idea that why doesn't the world understand that we're victims when the facts are completely the opposite of of reality, of that reality, doesn't make sense. Um, so that's one level of insanity, and then there are others, right? The fact that the Iranians finance a lot of this anti-Israel stuff, when there's absolutely no reason, zero, none, no reason at all for the Iranians to engage in anything remotely approaching a war with Israel. Israel has no desire, no claim over Iran, no beef with Iran whatsoever. The only thing that Iran clings to, so to speak, is the Palestinian story. Like they are the defenders of the Palestinians, where their whole their whole ethos is to spread their revolution, which would swallow up and destroy the Palestinians anyway. They're not Shia Muslims. They would be taken over by Iran. So what is this? Like, it makes absolutely zero sense. And you have this weird alliance between people who would otherwise be at each other's throats. I don't know if you've noticed some of the hostility between Sunni and Shia Muslims in the region, but sure, well, we'll take your money to kill the Jews. Why not? Um, and so Israel is now in a multi-front war, ostensibly over nothing. um, this is insane. People are dying because the world is absolutely mad. And what I say in the essay is that you have to attack the problem at the root. You have to solve it at the root. You can't This is not about politics. It's about the stories. Now, why do these stories appeal to the Palestinians? That's an interesting question. I mean, try to put yourself in the minds of one of the terrorists on October 7th. Most people look at that in horror and say, my God, I would never do that. But one thing is true. Let's start with one thing. The terrorists on October 7th were born innocent. They were born babies with unlimited potential. And something happened in the intervening years between the time that they were born and October 7th that turned them into the worst savages the world has seen in quite some time. What happened? Now, you could say, well, look, they've been indoctrinated and they believe this stuff and so on and so forth. But is that it? Like, is it just like a lack of options? Do they not have, I don't know, instead of the anti-Jew death camps in the summer or whatever the hell that they go to, and they didn't have, Disney World or golf camp or God Lord knows what. Is that it? It's just a lack of alternatives? I mean, why is it so attractive to these young men? And I thought about it a lot, I try to think what would drive me to become one of these October 7th terrorists. And the answer that I came up with is that imagine you're in your 20s. I remember when I was in my 20s, I thought I was going to live forever. And I thought anything was possible. I think that's a common experience. That I had this potential to do whatever the hell I set my mind to. And now imagine that's taken away from you. You can't become a doctor, you can't become a football player, you're trapped. You're never, ever going to leave the Gaza Strip. And it's not like staying in the Gaza Strip is the land of opportunity. I mean, ever since Hamas took over, the economy shrank by Lord knows how much. There's constant barricades, the threat of war. You can't say what you want. Most people are poor. The unemployment rate is really, really high. I mean, think about that. You have no prospects. How do you have a family? How do you get a wife? Like, this stuff is really important when you're a man. You want to raise kids and set an example for them and do well for them. And all that is robbed from you. And then, of course, you have war every few years because the maniacs who are running the asylum don't give a shit. For them, this is just a money-making scheme. And it's super lucrative. Until you end up dead, of course, in Iran, but still. You have no hope for your life. You don't think that's going to make you bitter? You don't think that's going to make you angry? There's no glory to your life. You get one life. And the cruel joke is that You're a Palestinian in Gaza under the thumb of Hamas. Like literally billions of years of existence, you arrive, and you're going to be gone, and it's going to be billions of years more afterwards. And that's the luck that you drew. They may not process it along those lines, but they certainly feel that. They know they're going to die, and they're not coming back. What will they do with their time? There's no great doctors there. There are no great writers. There are no great actors. There are no great athletes. There's nothing. Nothing. And it's not like they don't know this stuff exists. There's internet there. They have Facebook there. Snapchat. They've got all that stuff. They know who Lionel Messi is and stuff like that. They see these heroes. They see them. You know, I'm sure as kids they, probably part of them wanted to be them. Some of them. Why not? Why not be the best version of yourself? That's amazing. At least dream about it. And all that's ripped away from you. There's nothing for you. What happens to the men of ambition? They look for the roles that society rewards. And isn't it interesting that society puts up posters of jihadists, people that were killed, martyred, like superheroes? They glorify it. From the time that they were kids until they get blown to bits. Now, it's tragic and it's pointless, but if that's my only option for any kind of glory, for any kind of utility, so to speak, I'm going to find some people in that society who are going to take me up on it. That's the game that these Hamas chaps in Turkey and in Qatar are playing. They play on this it's not a bug, it's just a feature of human psychology, especially for men. It's not a bad thing, it's just neutral, right? We have ambition, we want to do things with our lives, we want to be productive members of society, we want to contribute. And if you have nothing left to do, then poison the minds of these people and tell them that these Jews, by the way, you've never met a Jew, but it's their fault that you have no hope in life. And you'll get the reward after you're dead. Your family's going to be compensated. Everyone's going to, all those posters of the guys who were killed before. That's going to be you. You won't be alive to see it, but that's going to be you. That is a cruel existence, but I can at least see it for myself. It's the only heroic journey that they have. Liberation struggle. And then they dress it up with Islam, which is the worst part about it, because then it ruins it for the rest of the Muslims. So that's what you guys produce? Bunch of suicide bombing terrorists who oppress women and rob from poor people and throw them up as, cannon fodder, essentially, right? Terrorists hide among young people and innocent people and women and say, don't shoot at us because, we've attached these human shields onto us. And then they parade their bodies like they actually give a shit, just so they can make more money off of this. and perpetuate this. And the trouble is, what makes this so impossible is that there's no way to, it's almost impossible for someone to rise up within the Palestinian population and say, this is insane and self-defeating, self-destructive. Where does this lead? Where does this lead? Does any one of them stand up and say, you know, we're supporting a movement that its ambition is genocide. And if you get our wish, we'll become the new Nazis. And nobody likes the Nazis. You say Nazi, everyone understands what you mean. Because the crimes that they committed were so memorable. It's like, wow, that level of evil. Whoa, my God, I didn't know that was kind of possible. That's where the Palestinians are headed, if they get their way, of course. This is not political. This is spiritual. There is no alternative heroic tale at the moment on offer. Look at the people that they celebrate. Look at the people that rise to the top of these societies. You don't see Elon Musk. You don't see Jeff Bezos. You don't see Michael Jordan. You don't see Ronaldo, Messi, whatever. David Goggins, Joe Rogan. You don't see any of these guys coming out of there. They celebrate people who do the most horrible things to strangers and think that they're being productive. And just look at how insanely counterproductive all this has been. I mean, just track the history of this stuff. They could have, before 1948, split more or less half the country, and they're just, it's getting smaller and smaller and smaller. The story is fucked for the Palestinians. It's absolutely fucked. And that's what drives all the politics and everything else. I mean, imagine you come into this world as a Palestinian and you're taught that your collective aim is to destroy this parallel national project, but which, by the way, arose more or less around the same time as you, a bit earlier, but still more or less around the same time. And as you have gotten absolutely smashed by these people, they're just going sky high. Economy, military, they're making you look terrible. This is the Cain and Abel story all over again. The brothers, the jealous, resentful one trying to kill the successful one. Again, this is not an accident, because the Jews, to their enduring credit, are grateful to be alive, and someone who's grateful to be alive puts in the effort to say thank you, to make themselves, to make the best of it. But they have this victim, this cling to victimhood that's really also just, it can be self-destructive as well. Because think about what's going on right now in Israel. It's fascinating, actually. Half the country is terribly upset with Benjamin Netanyahu. And now he's gotten a bad rap because he's been, tough on the Palestinians and a roadblock to peace. If you think that way, if you completely disregard the Palestinian story, sure, but he's wise enough, has been wise enough to notice that it's a trap. It's suicide. Why would you make peace with someone who won't give up the ambition to destroy you? Like, that doesn't make any sense. And he thinks, look, the best we can do with something like that is to control it. But I'm not letting those people have a country and they can arm themselves and shoot us willy-nilly if they want. Why would we do that, right? So I don't blame his pessimism on this stuff. But it pisses off a large part of the country because the Jews, you know, anti-Semitism does something to you, and especially when you're strong but powerless at the same time. 2,000 years of this. It's like we do well in society, and then when things start to turn bad, people get resentful and they take it out on the successful. And if they can't defend themselves, then they really take it out on them. And that's what happens to the Jews for so many years. And so you develop this kind of guilt about your success, and you try to hide it, and you try to, I don't know, you try to, I don't know. I mean, Jews just want to be accepted by the world. And that's fine, but not at all costs. You don't have to apologize for being great. You don't have to kill yourself. You don't have to commit national suicide just so people will like you and write nice things about you in the international media. And Netanyahu knows this. But he also knows how much this plagues the Jewish psyche. And so I'm guessing, I don't know the guy, I never met the guy, but I'm assuming he looks at the people protesting against him and the politicians who are railing against him, his opponents, and he thinks, you children don't know what you're talking about. And if that is the case, he'd be right. What is the shame of doing great things in the world? So these Jews have this baggage, and it's also self-destructive. It's dangerous because with a leader who doesn't recognize this in his or her own psyche, it can lead to peace deals that are terrible for you, for example. And when a leader like Netanyahu takes charge, it tears apart the country because the Jews who don't know this about themselves can't understand for the life of themselves why someone like a Netanyahu is the way he is. And so that took root, I don't know, 20 years ago, 30 years ago, against the guy, and it just continued to mushroom and boil over, and it tore apart the country. Now everyone likes to blame it on him, but he's not solely to blame. He stood his ground, and you know, when people succeed, it shines a light, right? Like the Israelis shine a light on the Palestinians, just how badly they fuck up is basically how they measure themselves against the Israelis in that sense. So Netanyahu does the same thing against his opponents and his political opponents, also his rivals and so on and so forth. He says, look, they feel that he makes them look bad, especially when he does peace deals and stuff like that with the Abraham Accords. So that resentment, that core resentment, is it's everywhere, and it's in every human heart, and it's a destructive force. So, on the essay in the heuristics, I proposed something else. I said that the heroes that lead us out of this mess, they have to be created, invented, because the current conditions don't allow it. And as far as I can tell, there are no heroes such as the ones that I envision that arrive, that are coming out of either society at the moment. But why a hero? Why the insistence on the heroic tale? Well, look around you. Study life. It's everywhere, the heroic tale. Everywhere. Every movie, every prophet, every king, every athlete. We are hardwired to go on the heroic journey, especially men. And very few people do it all the way. Some people have the sort of mini journeys and things like that, and full respect to all those people, but it's very, very few that do the extraordinary. And you can tell it's extraordinary because it captures everyone's imagination and it captures everyone's attention. Now, from the outside, it kind of looks a bit easy, but from the inside, it must be war, it must be hell, right? Like, you grow up a kid, normal ass kid. It's not like 6-year-old Napoleon was commanding armies or anything like that. I just recently read his biography, and I think in his 20s, the guy was taking, he was on medical leave from one of his tours I think it was in Paris, and he extended it, he faked an injury and stuff like that. Like, he was kind of an average dude, and then something happened, something snapped, and he became Napoleon. The point I'm trying to make is like something happens to all these people, and it's usually a brush with their own mortality that awakens the hero inside them. And he says, wake up. You have way more to offer. And that massive problem that you know about and you think you can fix, it calls to you. Go out there and fix it. And but like, how do you fix that massive problem? Napoleon, if I remember correctly, would read a lot about the ancients, and he would compare himself, measure himself against Alexander the Great. And this happens all the time. The greats measure themselves against the greats. Why? Because when they start out, they have no idea what they're doing, because who knows what they're doing. But the goal is so big, and on some level they've already imagined themselves achieving that goal, that some part of them already puts themselves in the same league as, say, Alexander the Great, or wherever the hell it may be. When Kobe Bryant made that promise to himself, said, I'm going to be the greatest, or one of the greatest basketball players ever. And then he became friends with Michael Jordan, and he started asking him a zillion questions. And, he became his sort of mentor, basketball mentor. On some level, he put himself in the same shoes as, or maybe even greater than, Michael Jordan. He was asking Michael Jordan all those questions because he wanted to know how you do it. And that happens over and over and over and over again. It is the way it is done. You have a master, you have a student. Student seeks his masters, the master finds his students. It happens organically. The universe is set up that way. Don't ask me why that is. It just is. You do this in your own life all the time. I guarantee you that 90% of Wikipedia searches is precisely that. It's like people you admire, where were they, at what age, and how does that compare to me, and all that kind of stuff. Now imagine a competing heroic tale that is based on the traditions of the region. That defeats the one on offer, the popular one, on offer in the region. Now you could say, yeah, but Alexander the Great was a historical figure, and you're talking about fiction, me, right, in this case. Now, two things, I would say. One is actually a quote from Napoleon. I think he said something like, all history is a lie, or something like that. Now, that's not true, right? Napoleon was a real person. He was the emperor of France. Like, these are all facts that you can check that existed. But history does leave out quite a lot, and it throws in things that didn't happen either. So some of history is fictional, and some of what people say about themselves or write about other people just simply aren't true, or half the story, or 10% of the story, whatever it is, right? I mean, a story, the greatest stories, leave out all the shit bits, all the boring stuff. Who wants to hear that stuff, Um, but so that's number one, and number two, you know, if it's real enough, fiction is a motherfucker, man. It's a world beater. I'll give you an example. So I don't know if any of you know who David Goggins is, but David Goggins is an ultra athlete. He had the world pull-up record for a while. He runs, 100-mile races, 200-mile races. The guy's a machine. He's amazing. He's an amazing man. And I can't remember if it was the pull-up record. I think that he would play this song in the Rocky movie over and over and over on repeat. Because there's a scene in the movie he talks about it a lot where I think it was Apollo Creed knocks out Rocky. Sorry, he knocks him down. And Apollo Creed is celebrating and stuff like that. And then slowly Rocky gets back up. And then the camera points to Apollo's face, and Apollo, is all the color, all the life in his face goes away because Rocky is down, but he gets back up, and Apollo's like, I can't beat this guy. He keeps on coming. And so that's the moment where David Goggins is like, yeah, I'm the guy who keeps on getting back up. I'm here to take other people's souls, is what he calls it. It's like, you will not break me. I will keep on coming. He got that from a movie. Okay? A movie that never happened. Actors, fake blood, whatever, right? There was a fake fight. Inspired this man to become, partly inspired, because there were other inspirations too, but partly inspired him to do the amazing things that he did. Elon Musk talks about reading. Um, can't remember the name of that book. Anyways, where it's this story that they get to this machine in the universe, and then they ask him a question like, what are the secrets of the universe? And he says 42. And the lesson of the story was, it's not about the answers, but it's about asking the right questions. He cites this continuously as one of the main motivating factors for what he does at SpaceX and Tesla and so on. Fiction is powerful, man. So long as the message is true. And so that's what I offer, what I want to offer. Now the market for people who read is small, relatively speaking. I mean, in the absolute numbers, it's pretty big, but the market for TV shows is enormous, and ultimately where this does the most damage and has the most impact. Because, I mean, my God, right? You see these videos produced by Hezbollah and Hamas and stuff. They're fighters doing all this so-called heroic stuff. So, and Al Jazeera and all that kind of stuff. But it has to be written first in order for it to be acted and produced and distributed. So that's what I'm doing at Substack. And to me, it's like a no-brainer. I mean, I know it sounds kind of crazy. It's, people are conditioned to think that this needs a political solution, and I have no problem with a political solution. In fact, that is the way this ends, right? In some sort of peace agreement. But we have to fix the problem first. We have to make the conditions right for a political settlement before we even consider spending time and energy on this stuff. And I ended that essay asking, like, so it's already, I've established how crazy all this is. Why not give this a chance? Like, this is such a low budget thing to do that makes sense. I mean, the risk here is that I can't produce the kind of stories that resonate, and at the moment that's true. I won't lie to you, right? And that's why I've got a great platform to hit two birds with one stone, right? Where I've got the podcast, and I can invite people who can help me fill in all those gaps, and then let spark my imagination. I'm not a Muslim. I'm not a Palestinian. So there's lots of stuff that I just don't know. But the basic stuff, the fundamental stuff, I know that pretty well. And a story is a story, right? We're talking about people overcoming. Essentially, here's where it gets a little mystical, I suppose. But if you think about it, you're not you. I mean, you're you, but you're not really you. Like, Jews behave a certain way because they've been conditioned by many, many generations. It's not just like the education. It's also the behavior patterns that they mimic from their parents who've been mimicking stuff from their parents and so on and so forth. Like, it's not an accident that this victim narrative stuff resonates with Jewish people a lot. And that's a quirk. It's a personality trait that is inherited, but can also be broken. I mean, that pattern can actually be broken by someone or someone's. And the same is true for Palestinians. You've got several generations, maybe even Lord knows how many actually, of humiliated men, and they behave in a certain way, and they are susceptible to corruption. Let's put it simply, right? Um, I mean, again, imagine you have no hope, right? Right? Fuck it. I might as well. I might as well take bribes. Like, I have nowhere to go. I'm boxed in. My society's closed-minded. Um, I might as well just take bribes and make whatever I can with the time I have on this planet. And I'll take care of my family. I'll sell my soul, and that'll be that. But someone can actually break these patterns. Someone can actually stand up and say, no, actually, this is very bad for me. And you have to think about it. Like, this is where it gets exciting. But you have the people and the masses and the nation and all that kind of stuff. But what are the nation and the people and the masses? It's like they're all individuals. And so it has to start with an individual. And that's the cool thing about leadership, right? It's one person can make that courageous step, and then it starts to infect other people when they see that it works, when they understand. But when they see, but the emphasis is that they see it works. All right? Because you can talk a good game and a nice game and everything like that, but no one's going to take you seriously if you're not successful. You're probably watching this video and thinking, fuck this guy. What does he know? And, fair enough. I haven't done anything yet. There's no peace deal and none of that kind of stuff. So I understand the skepticism, but every hero has to go through this journey. Every hero has to deal with doubters, non-believers. Every hero has to smile and bear it and say, I believe I'm right. I might be wrong in the execution. In fact, I'll make plenty of mistakes. But it's the goal that matters. And I'll leave it with this that I think just applies universally. So what kind of a person looks at the insanity of the world that I described at the top and thinks, yeah, that's the way of the world. So be it. That's my life. That's Jews have to be afraid and go on campus and experience anti-Semitism, and the Israelis have to send their kids in shelters, and Palestinians have to accept crooked leadership and genocidal tyrants in Gaza. And yeah, what can you do? I mean, what sort of a statement is that about what you think life should be like? I think the kind of person that makes that statement needs more self-love, because if you loved yourself fully, and not like I'm so great, I'm the king of the world or the queen of the world, and I deserve everything for getting up out of the morning. That's not what I mean. We are all lucky to be alive. We've won. We won the fucking lottery. And why not try to have an amazing life? Like, if you loved yourself, if you truly loved yourself, would you put up with bullshit like this? Would you say to yourself that I'm deserving of things like this? Like, what kind of a person says, I'm a Jew and therefore anti-Semitism is just a part of my existence? And it might kill some of my family, I might try to do something about it, but okay, whatever. Why, why, why is this acceptable? Well, I'm an Iranian and my regime is starting wars with Israel and the West, and I have no beef with them at all. I have no desire to fight with them, but yeah, sure, why not? Now I understand they use violence and they oppress their people and stuff like that, which is why it's very hard for heroes to rise out of those societies, and therefore they have to be invented. Um, but if we all loved ourselves and made this collective decision to say, you know what, at bottom, most of us, maybe all of us, we mean well, and we want a world full of love, then none of this shit would be happening. Let's put it that way. And the world can seem like it runs on fear. People are afraid to take risks, right? They call it, that's why they call it risk, right? But, people get up and do stuff because they have people who they care for and they love. And that includes themselves. So if they just love themselves a little bit more and really accepted with the consequences of that, then we wouldn't find ourselves in this situation on the verge of World War III. Anyway, I hope that made sense. Just thinking back on it now, I might have said things a bit differently here and there, but nothing I regret. And I hope that you'll help me and share this, because the more people view this, then the easier it will be to get some pretty high-profile people on the show, on my podcast, and better for you, right? This is for you, right? Well, I mean, it's for me too, but it's also for you. I want to put out stuff that people are interested in, and people are interested in smart people who have a following and all that kind of stuff. So, yeah. So please help me. Please share this, and let's end this madness. Let's end this nightmare. 2,000 years is long enough. All right, everybody. Take care.